Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome back. So last time we talked about the basics of economics, and we'll keep talking about economics. And so today's topic is about the short run cost and long run cost, and marginal utility, marginal cost, etc. And maybe, by the way, today I'm waiting an important call, so I need to ask your understanding first. So when a phone call, I need to get that. So I'm sorry for that in advance. So last time we talked about a simple example about a market where we can buy an apple. And the important thing is that even though, so you can imagine that in a market, in a competitive market, you buy an apple and there is a price for each apple. Suppose that one apple is $1, no, $10, I don't know. Suppose that the price for an apple is $10. So you want to buy 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 apples. But the important thing is that each apple has different value for you. Okay? So this is that curve. For the first apple, this value is that much. That means even if this price is that high, you want to buy one apple. And if the price decreases, you may want to buy another apple. Okay? But up to this point, if the price goes down further, then you may want to buy one more apple, etc. So this is your demand curve. The demand curve, the quantity is a function of price. Okay, so as you see, that's the decreasing function. And we have also the supply curve, and the intersection of demand curve and supply curve gives us the market clearing price. That's the market equilibrium. But I want to emphasize that each quantity, each apple has different value for you. Okay. So we talked about that. We talked about elasticity of the demand and talked about the elasticity of supply. So market equilibrium. And then we discussed two types of market. The first one is centralized auction-based market. Here we have a single market clearing price, and the price is determined from at the intersection of two curves. Okay, and three types of suppliers: the infra-marginal suppliers, the marginal supplier producer, or extra-marginal producers. So this figure is interesting in the sense that this is the market clearing price, and this is the cost function of the producer, and the gap between the price and this cost is the profit of the supplier. So these infra-marginal producers can have this amount of profits totally. This area is sale, okay, mature, but this area is the profit. And in our textbook, we differentiate profit versus revenue. Revenue is like sale. Profit is the net revenue. Okay. So, and another important thing is that this consumer's surplus. This consumer surplus exists because each apple has different value for you. Okay. The first apple, its value is 15 cents, for example, 14 cents, 13 cents, etc. Okay, that's why depending on the price, you want to you buy different number of apples. But in the market clearing price is 10 cents. Okay, so you buy 15 cent valued apple at 10 cents. This one you buy 14 cent valued apple at 10 cents. Okay, so each one of this is the surplus of the consumer. So this is consumer's surplus, and this is the profit of producers. And the sum of consumers' surplus plus the producer's profit is called social welfare, or social what? Yeah, global welfare or social welfare. So we want to maximize this social welfare. And as you see, yeah, this area is maximized when the price is same to the market clearing price. So you may remember that if the price is here, then what happens? If the price is here, then consumer supply is just this much. Because price is higher than market clearing price, the consumer surplus is reduced. But because the price is higher than market clearing price, the profit of the producers are increased. But the thing is, the sum of these two, the social welfare is reduced by this amount. So this green area is called welfare loss. In your textbook, this area is called dead weight loss. Okay? So if the price is different from market clearing price, then we have welfare loss. That means we didn't achieve the optimality. So I didn't talk about Pareto optimal or Pareto efficient last time, but this is very important concept, so I want to talk about that today. So, okay. So suppose that, okay, well, what is the meaning of Pareto efficient? Yeah, Pareto efficient is typically used in economics, but in optimization, we use Pareto optimal. So these two terminology, Pareto efficient in economics is same to Pareto optimal in optimization. So what is the meaning of Pareto efficient? The closely related word with Pareto efficient is trade-off. In solving engineering problems, you may already experience different types of trade-off. Okay? I want to maximize A, I want to maximize B, but it's not possible to increase both at the same time. Sometimes we need to sacrifice B to increase A. Okay? So that's the trade-off. Well, typical example explaining about trade-off is the analogy between your GPA. You want to have a high GPA, but also you want to play a lot. High GPA and playtime, long playtime. You want to maximize these two at the same time, but typically that does not happen. You need to reduce your playtime to increase GPA, for example. Okay, so that's the trade-off. So when we are not at the Pareto efficient point, that means that we can improve these two conflict quantities at the same time. We don't need to sacrifice one for the other. Okay, there is no trade-off if we are not at Pareto efficient point. Otherwise, if we are at the Pareto efficient point, we need to sacrifice one for the other. But if we are not at the Pareto optimal point, we can improve both things at the same time. So when the price is here or there, can you see that that point is not Pareto efficient? Do you see that? This is not Pareto efficient. That is not Pareto efficient because, is it true? Is it true? Are you sure? When the price changes from here to here, obviously the profit increases, but what about the consumer's surplus? Of course, the sum of these two is maximized, but what about the consumer's profit here? If the price is here, then the area, this area is greater than that. That's not true. Oh, what am I missing? Check it. Check your textbook. But it looks like market equilibrium and social welfare. So, is there anyone who has a textbook? No, you don't have textbook. Okay. This is being recorded now. All I can say is that at this point is Pareto efficient because you need to sacrifice one for the other. But I'm hesitating now is because I'm questioning this point is whether Pareto efficient or not. Well, actually, I'm thinking of maybe so check the right answer on your own. I'm just suggesting how to think. So this is x1 and this is x2, and we want to maximize x1 and x2. Like this is GPA, and this is your playtime. So then, suppose that this is a point where this is x1 and x2. And this region is the one where you can achieve x1 and x2. Okay? And if you are here, so this is the achievable region. And if you are here, by allocating some of your resources efficiently, you can go to from this point and that point. So there is no trade-off. You can improve your GPA and also you can play. Maybe that is possible if you have a good night's sleep, for example, or you eat very healthy food, something like that. Okay, so your brain works well, and also anyway. But if you are here to achieve better GPA, you need to reduce your playtime. Okay, so this boundary is a set of Pareto efficient points. Okay, and this market equilibrium is one of this Pareto efficient point. And my question is, if price is here or there or there, are these other points are also Pareto efficient or not? That is my question. Think about it on your own. Okay? You see the questions. You see the question. Okay. Thank you. The slide is not updated. And because last time and today, we are going to use the terminology marginal a lot. Marginal utility for consumers and marginal cost for producers. So marginal utility utility is the utility that the consumer gets by consuming one more unit. Okay? And marginal cost is the increased cost by producing one more unit. So when you see the terminology marginal, the concept is related with derivative of something. Okay? So marginal cost is the derivative of original cost function. And marginal utility is the derivative of utility function. Okay? Okay, and let's talk about concepts from the theory of the firm. This terminology in economics, the firm means a company. Okay, the company produces Apple, laptop, cell phone, blah blah blah. So let's talk about production function. Here, Y is the quantity of the production, and X1 and X2 are the factors of production. For example, again, Apple. We want to produce Apple, and Y is the number of apples produced, and X1 and X2s are the factors of production, something like fertilizer, 비료, okay? Or X2 is the area of the land you can use, okay? So, because this F is a multivariate function with different factors of production, here we fixed X2 and change X1 and see how the output changes with respect to X1. If you use more fertilizer, then you can expect higher, larger output. But the thing is, this curve is concave. That is called law of diminishing marginal return. And this is typically observed in many situations. Initially, when you use some very small portion of fertilizer, the output increases very rapidly. But just using more and more and more fertilizer does not guarantee that it gives me more apples. Okay. Similarly, suppose that X2 is land, the area of the land, and X1 is fixed. The total amount of fertilizer is fixed. Then increasing just this land does not guarantee. Of course, when you have more larger land, then you can plant more apple trees and can have more apple products. But when X1 is fixed, for example, the total amount of fertilizer is fixed, even if you plant many trees, you do not have sufficient fertilizers for all these trees. So the efficiency decreases. So that's why this curve looks like that. Okay, so are you agree with this law of diminishing marginal return using that analogy? Okay, good. And let's talk about long run and short run. Here the run means you operate your business machine or a farm or something like that. And short and long means the period of time. Okay, so there is no clear distinction between the short run and long run. Okay, there is no clear distinction between these two. And so what we assume is that some factors of production can be adjusted faster than others. For example, fertilizer versus planting more trees. It takes time, right? You need to plant apple trees and wait until it grows, right? And then it produces new apple. But fertilizer, when you use more fertilizer, you can immediately expect a higher gain or yield. Okay. So in short run, we can observe when you change some factor of production, and that immediately affects the output of the production. So that's about the short run. But about long run, it requires planning and investing. You need to buy new land. or you need to buy new machine, you need to build new power plant. Okay, so in the long run, you have plenty of time. So in the long run case, other factors, here we have only x1 and x2, but actually we have n factors of production. So in the long run, you can optimize all of these production factors. But in the short run, you need to fix some of them and only can change the others. Okay? Yeah, so long run, all factors can be changed or all factors can be optimized. In the short run, some factors cannot be changed. So we need to assume fixed factors. No specific duration separates long run and short run. Okay, long run means long term, short run means short term. Input-output function. So using this function f, when x2 is fixed, we can draw y as a function of x1. And then you can think of, because y is a function of x1, you can think of the inverse function of that. Right? So x1 is the inverse function of f given x2 is fixed. So the inverse function here is denoted by g. So for example, when y is the output power of power plant and x1 is the fuel required to produce a certain amount of power. Okay, then x1 to generate y amount of power, how much fuel I need to consume. Okay. Let's talk about short run cost. Again, quantity, output, and this is cost. SR means short run. So as you see, this short run cost is a convex function. And when you take the derivative of this, the derivative still is still an increasing function. Okay? Marginal cost is an increasing function, which means that the original cost function is a convex function. So here the short run cost is this W1 and W2 are the unit cost of factors of production x1 and x2. So W1 times x1 plus W2 times x2, this is fixed. And using the inverse function, x1 is given like that. By the way, so yeah, y is here. So when you rotate your head 90 degrees, then the amount of required fuel is increasing as a convex function with respect to y. That's why we have this kind of cost function typically. Here W1 and W2 are fixed. So when you take the derivative of short run cost function, you have this marginal cost. Marginal cost is an increasing function or non-decreasing function. Convex due to law of marginal returns. Okay, marginal returns. And let's talk about optimal production. And for simplicity, we assume perfectly, we assume completely competitive market. The perfectly competitive market means that the producers and consumers, individual producer and consumer, cannot affect the price. Okay, the market price is determined. And assuming the price is given, and the producers thinks, how much do I need to produce to maximize my profit? Okay, so the production that maximizes profit is pi is the price given from the market. This is constant here. Okay, so pi times y. This is my total profit. No, this is my total revenue from using the definition of your textbook, and this is the short run cost. So revenue minus cost is profit, and I want to maximize that by changing the output quantity y. This is very easy optimization problem because convex function minus that. This is concave function. This is a concave function. So maximizing a concave function is easy. Just take the derivative, and when the derivative is 0, there's the point where we determine the output y. So take the derivative. It gives us pi is equal to marginal cost. So the producers need to stop their production when the marginal cost is equal to the market price. Okay? If they produce more than that, then it costs more than the price. So you don't have any incentive to that, right? So at this point, the optimal production quantity is determined. Here, we assume that only if the price pi does not depend on y. Perfect competition. Typically, the price depends on the total number of production and total number of demands. But in the perfect competition, there are a lot of producers and a lot of consumers. So each individual's contribution is negligible. Okay. Okay. Cost, accountant's perspective. In the short run, some costs are variable and others are fixed. Here, the accountant means 회계사. Okay. So, we have the fixed cost here. We have fixed cost here. So some cost is fixed. That means the fixed cost is independent of the production quantity y. Okay, but also other parts should be proportional to y, right? So that is called variable cost. Here, variable does not mean 변수. This is just adjective. Okay, cost that varies depending on the quantity, and the factors are labor, material, fuel, transportation fee, etc. Okay, so these are variable cost. And the fixed cost means that the cost is independent of the output. So this is usually related with investment, installation. So you remember we talked about OPEX versus CAPEX. So OPEX is operational cost. There's a variable cost, and CAPEX, capital expenditure, is a fixed cost, equipment, land, or some overhead. Okay. What about quasi-fixed cost? Quasi-fixed cost means that when you draw this kind of production cost, when the quantity is 0, we have this fixed cost. But you can think of dot is here and circle here. So there is a quantum jump. So what does that mean? The example is startup cost of power plant. When you have a power plant, you have a startup cost because you need to turn on the engine. And to turn on the engine, you need to consume some amount of fuel. Okay? So when you turn on the engine, even if the generation power is 0, it already consumes this amount of cost. But if you turn off the engine and you produce 0, the output power is still 0. So there is a discontinuity point. You see what I'm saying? Okay? So in the case of the power plant, we have a startup cost. So you see what I'm saying? And other types of costs are sunk cost versus recoverable cost. So yeah, the cost can be divided into either sunk cost or recoverable cost. First, the recoverable cost means that suppose that you want to build a power plant or the production facility, so you need to buy a land first, okay? But you decide to quit the job. You decide to exit this market because it is no longer profitable. Then you can resell the land to others. So that cost can be recoverable. Okay? And you have a machine. You can resell it to others. That is a recoverable cost. But if nobody wants to buy that machine, then that is just a metal, just iron. Scrap metal. Scrap metal means 고철. Okay? So your original invest minus the value of this scrap metal is sunk cost that cannot be recoverable at all. In Korean, this sunk cost is called what? Yeah, you know that. And sometimes, people cannot quit because they think too much about this sunk cost, and they are drawn to the sea deeper and deeper and deeper. At some point, you need to 손절. Okay. Okay, let's talk about average cost. So we talked about the fixed cost and the variable cost. So variable cost is a function of the output, y. Fixed cost is just constant. And you're curious about what is the average cost. The average cost is the cost divided by the output quantity. Okay, so cost over y, this is average cost, AC. And we have these two parts, obviously. This is average variable cost. This is average fixed cost. So using this cost function, quantity and production cost, for example, this is a quadratic function. And if the production quantity is here, the slope of this line is average cost, right? The slope is the average cost at this point. The slope here, that's the average cost at this quantity. When this line is tangent to this production cost curve, something interesting happens. Anyway, so you can imagine the average cost function looks like that. Initially, the slope is steep, and then it's getting rather stiff, and then after that the slope increases again. You see that, right? So as y increases, the slope decreases, and the average cost is minimized at this quantity, but after that the slope increases again. So that's this figure. So average cost looks like that. Or you can think of this average variable cost plus average fixed cost. This is just like that, right? The average fixed cost is 1 over y function. It is monotonically decreasing function. Average variable cost, it will look like that. So the sum of this curve and the curve gives me these types of shape. And let's think about marginal cost and average cost together. Look at this curve. This is the marginal cost, which is the derivative of cost function. This is the average cost you just saw before. They intersect at some point. And can you say something about this point, this intersection point? If this figure is drawn carefully, correctly, then you see that marginal cost curve intersects average cost curve at its minimum point. Is it correct? or this is just a coincidence? What do you think? Correct. Oh, so why is that? 당연한 거 아닌가요? So why is that? Oh. How did you do that? Why did you do that? Did you study this topic in advance or?
민재가 줬던 자료에
오.
내용이 있어서
오.
거기에 그냥 인터섹션 포인트가 뭐 그렇게 나와 있는데 이해가 안 돼가지고 직접 해보니까 맞았어.
Okay, so this is not a difficult problem. So turn in one page solution. Actually, this much. Turn in one half quarter page solution by Wednesday. Think about it. Okay. When should I stop producing? So we saw this before, just a few minutes ago. When the marginal cost is equal to the cost of producing one more. What am I talking about? The marginal cost is the cost of producing one more unit. And we need to stop when the marginal cost is equal to the market price. So if marginal cost is greater than market price, we need to stop producing. And if marginal cost is less than the market price, we can increase the production further. So, okay. Sorry, I said the other way around. If marginal cost is greater than market price, we need to stop producing. In this case, we need to keep producing. And so, yeah, this is the average cost curve. This is the market price. We see two intersection, Q1 and Q3, and this is Q2 is the minimum point of average cost. And here the marginal cost is this much. No, this is the marginal cost, and that is same to the price at Q4. So what can we say here? Profitable only if Q4 is greater than Q1 because of fixed cost. Do you see this statement? So we are talking about the how much, how many quantity do we need to produce. How can I say? So we talked about, so far we talked about we need to stop producing at Q4 because this is the price and this is the marginal cost. They intersect at this point. Then what is the relationship between Q4 and Q1?
Q1이 Q4보다 크면 저만큼 Q1만큼 생산하기 위해서 마지막 코스트가 더 높아지는데.
So there is an important point here. So when we talk about marginal cost, this marginal cost does not consider fixed cost, right? But we also need to consider fixed cost too, okay? So in that case, this Q4 should be greater than Q1 because after this point, anyway, the average cost decreases. So when we produce more and more and more, the average cost decreases further and further. So in this range, yeah, producing one more unit is okay. And we need to stop the producing when the marginal cost equal to the price. Okay, but at this point, this is the case. What about Q3? Or don't we have any relationship between Q4 and Q3? What do you think? What is the relationship between Q3 and Q4? So here, this profitable implies, we need to consider the total cost, the fixed cost plus the variable cost. So we are profitable only if this average cost is less than the market price. Do you see that? Yeah. Because average cost times the total quantity is the total cost, okay, and the pi times y is the total revenue. Okay, so yes, this is the reason where we can produce. Then Q4 should be less than Q3. Am I correct? Do you agree with me? Do we need to modify this statement? Think about it. Think about it, and I will ask you again on Wednesday. My question is, what is the relationship between Q3 and Q4? And I'm arguing that Q4 should be within this range. Q4 should not greater than Q3. Tell me on Wednesday whether you agree with me or not. You have 2 homeworks. Next, short run average cost versus long run average cost. So, okay, yeah, we see this kind of average cost, and this is the case for the short run, and this is for the case of long run. And this figure wants to say that this long run average cost is the lower bound of short run average cost. Okay, like this. So short run average cost curve is like that, and the long run average cost is the lower bound of all the short run average cost. And the reason is because when we talk about short run, we need to fix some factors of productions. They are fixed. Okay. Here, we can only change y. In long run case, we can optimize all other factors. Okay. So anyway, this long run average cost should be less than short run average cost. Okay. So that's one part. And the other part is that, okay, again, there is a point where the fixed quantity in the long run, there is a case where the fixed quantity of the long run, short run, is equal to the optimized value of that in the long run. So that's this point. Okay. In a short run, we assume some fixed value of some other factors, but that values can, at some point, that values can be an optimized value for some scenario. Okay, so that's why we have this kind of shape. So you need to remember this long run average cost is the lower bound of the short run average cost. And from optimization perspective, now this is obvious because in a short run case, we have a small set of a variable. And in a long run case, we have a larger set of optimization variable. Okay. So the constraint of the variable or the feasible set of the variable of a short run is smaller than the constraint set of the long run average cost case. Okay. Complex more and more. So here we have a short run and long run and marginal cost and average cost all together. Well, I think we need to discuss this together. Why this happens? Why this happens? Cost function. So, this point, this slope is the average cost, and the tangent line here is the marginal cost. So at each point, you can visualize the average cost and the marginal cost. And this point, let's say this is y star. This is the case where marginal cost equal to the average cost. And this average cost is minimized at this point, right? Because the slope is minimized and then increases again. So this average cost is minimized at y star. And at y star, the average cost is equal to marginal cost, right? So this is y star. That's where marginal cost is equal to average cost, and at this point, average cost is minimized, as you see, slope. The slope is minimized and then increases again. You see that, okay? So we can have this figure for short run and long run. So that's this figure, long run case and short run case. Okay, let's talk about more about cost, economist perspective. Opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost? What would be the best use of the money spent to make the product? Not taking the opportunity sale at a higher price represents a cost. So you have two options. Is it a good way? Which one? Is there anyone who can explain this opportunity cost? What is opportunity cost?
어떤 경제 주체가 여러 가지 선택 사항들 중에서 선택하지 않은 것들의 가치, 그래서 그 기회비용이 더 크면 내 선택이 잘못됐다.
Yeah. So suppose that you have two options. When you take option A, you can expect $100. Okay, that's your kind of profit. Okay, but there is a cost that is called opportunity cost because you chose not to do B, and the profit of this is supposed at $80. When you do this, you can get $100. When you do this, B, you can get $80. Then by choosing A, you sacrifice choosing B. Okay, so you lose this $80. So that's the opportunity cost. So 100 minus 80. So you need to maximize your profit considering opportunity cost together. Okay. So we have opportunity cost concept, and the example here is use the money to grow apple or put it in the bank where it earns interest, or option A or option B. Next topic is about risks and markets and contracts. So here I want to explain risk today and keep talking about markets and contracts on Wednesday. So here, what is the meaning of risk? The concept of risk, we can think about different types of risk. And the origin of risk is that future is uncertain. That's why you are using machine learning, the prediction algorithms to forecast load and generation and price, etc. So this uncertainty translates into risk. And in our case, the risk is loss of income. So the risk can be the probability times the consequences, the results. And doing business means accepting some risks. So you should be a risk taker to become an entrepreneur. Risk taking. Okay, but the willingness to accept risk varies, depends on your age, for example. So the venture capitalist versus the retiree, someone who already retired, they have different willingness to take risk. Okay? This venture capitalist, they are very willing to accept risk, high return, high. Pause, please. 여보세요.